Ever tried to buy a camcorder that looked sleek on the product page, only to find it struggles when you actually need to capture that 1-second moment at a wedding or a low-light concert? I've been there, spending time scrolling through glossy images, assuming the autofocus will be buttery smooth, the battery will last through a full day, and the menus won't feel like a maze. That's why I'm diving into the Sony HVR Z5P, a professional-grade PAL HD camcorder that promises to bridge that gap between looks good online and delivers when it counts. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about who this camcorder is really for. If you're a hobbyist who mainly shoots YouTube vlogs on a tripod and never leaves the house, you'll probably find a lot of this system overkill. The HVR Z5P shines in scenarios where you need a handheld, broadcast-style rig. Think event videography, small-scale documentaries, or even a freelance news gig where you have to move quickly, change angles on the fly, and keep the footage looking polished. It also fits nicely for aspiring filmmakers who have outgrown consumer camcorders but aren't ready to jump into interchangeable lens cinema cameras. On the flip side, if you're just looking for a point-and-shoot that you can toss in a backpack for occasional family trips, you'll likely be better off with a lighter, cheaper option. One of the first things I noticed when I held the HVR Z5P was how the ergonomics are geared toward a professional workflow. The grip is sculpted to keep your hand steady for extended periods, and the button layout mirrors what you'd see on a broadcast-type camcorder. That means the zoom, focus, and record controls are all within thumb reach, reducing the need to fumble around when you're tracking a moving subject. For someone who's been shooting events where you have to switch between a wide crowd shot and a tight interview, that layout translates to fewer missed moments. Autofocus confidence is a big selling point for many buyers, especially those who aren't comfortable pulling focus manually. In real-world testing, the HVR Z5P's AF system performed reliably in well-lit environments. Faces locked on quickly, and the focus stayed solid when the subject moved across the frame. However, the camera does rely on contrast detect AF, which can hesitate a bit in low-contrast scenes, like a dimly lit hall with soft lighting. In those cases, I found it helpful to switch to the manual focus assist mode and give the lens a gentle nudge. It's not a deal-breaker, but it's something to be aware of if you often shoot in challenging lighting. Speaking of low-light behavior, the camcorder's sensor is designed for PAL HD, delivering decent detail up to 720p. In practice, you'll notice that the image retains good color fidelity down to about ISO 800. Push it higher, and you start to see a bit of noise, especially in the shadow areas. That's pretty typical for a camcorder in this price bracket, and it means you'll want to plan your lighting or use external lights if you're filming a theater performance or an indoor ceremony after sunset. If you can keep the scene at least moderately lit, the HVR Z5P will give you clean, broadcast-style footage without the grain you see on many consumer models. Stabilization is another area where this camcorder tries to earn its keep. Sony equipped the HVR Z5P with optical image stabilization built into the lens, which does a respectable job smoothing out handheld shakes when you're walking or panning slowly. It's not a gimbalable solution, so fast, abrupt movements will still produce jitter, but for the typical run-and-gun style of event coverage, it reduces the need for a tripod in many situations. I found that pairing the camcorder with a shoulder rig further enhances the stability, especially when you have to move through crowds while keeping the shot steady. Lens ecosystem matters a lot for a camcorder that's positioned as a professional tool. The HVR Z5P uses Sony's 3-chip CCD sensor and a fixed 30x optical zoom lens that covers a useful range from wide-angle to medium telephoto. While you can't swap lenses, the built-in zoom is smooth and the lens maintains color consistency throughout the range. For most event work, that's sufficient. You can capture a wide stage shot and then zoom in for a close-up of a speaker without changing gear. If you're looking for interchangeable lenses or a super-wide cinematic look, you'll have to look elsewhere. Menu friction is something that can make or break a shoot day. The HVR Z5P runs on Sony's classic camcorder interface, which feels familiar if you've ever used a Sony Handycam or a broadcast cam. The menus are organized into logical sections: recording, focus, white balance, and so on, and you can access the most common settings with a few button presses. That said, the system isn't as intuitive as modern mirrorless cameras with touch screens. New users might need to spend a half hour reading the manual.